Hey guys, it's Nikki in Nashville. Welcome back to the Real Country Podcast. So this past March, I had the absolute pleasure of sitting down with both Jesse, Daniel, and Benjamin Tod right before Jesse's sold-out show at Skinny Dennis in Nashville, Tennessee. We covered everything past, present, and future between these two amazing artists, so sit back, relax, and stay a while. Let's get into it. So that was actually going to be my first question. I mean, I know you were heavily into busking since you're from the Nashville area in Broadway, were you doing this same kind of thing? You said you were working a lot of different jobs.
Yeah, I was always I was working, I was in and out of, my addiction, being homeless, and then I'd kind of get it together.
Yeah.
And, have jobs, day jobs. I worked in grocery for a long time. I did just a lot of different stuff, kind of pretty, unstable in that way. But I did busk in the Santa Cruz area where I'm from.
Okay.
Quite a bit in the beginning, and that's kind of how I got my start as far as being able to sit in with other musicians. I busked a lot with bluegrass guys, and
Sure.
I didn't know anything, and they taught me like the boom chuck, just keeping straight rhythm. And I came from more of a rock and roll background, as far as playing guitar in bands, so I wanted to do this like heavy, back and forth thing, and they were like, "Hey, this isn't about that. This is about just like keeping the rhythm."
Yeah.
And so yeah, I have a little bit of busking. Obviously, nothing like what you've done throughout the U.S., but yeah, just in the Santa Cruz area.
Okay. Well, curious reason I asked, figuring out how one gets into something like that. Is it just environment, or how is that? How is even an addiction something that you kind of got into?
It's definitely, as far as addiction, it's generational with me.
Okay.
I come from a long lineage of hillbilly, white trash, redneck. They were the moonshiners of the last era. They were the meth cookers of the modern era. But I don't think I had a lot of direction as a child. My grandparents did everything that they could to kind of guide me, but there were a lot of, I guess, darker forces working against me in my development.
Yeah, I can relate a lot to that with the direction, kind of lack of direction and whatnot. For me, I think it was also a family thing. I've had a lot of addiction in my family. Whether alcoholism or drug addiction, just as far as that goes. But, really for me, it was I think a big part of the environment that I grew up in the area I did. For whatever reason, if it's kind of a relic of the counterculture, 60s and 70s stuff that was happening out, in California at that time, for whatever reason, I think that, drugs were a big part of growing up there, especially at the time that I did, drinking and drugs, just partying in general.
Yeah.
And kind of woven into that is also this weird California prison culture, that a lot of these guys that I grew up with, their older brothers, went to San Quentin and came back, and that's where a lot of my tattoos came from.
Okay.
Guys who learned in prison and started just using the car battery to tattoo at their house or whatever, that type of deal.
Oh my gosh.
And so there was kind of just a lot of that, like you said, kind of dark influence within the punk rock realm and just, the music realm in general. Not to say there wasn't also a lot of positive, within that. Obviously,
Sure.
it made me who I am and whatnot. But for a person like me who has the propensity toward excess, and really has a hard time stopping, I get obsessed with things. It was a pretty dangerous, thing to get into. So I think that's why it did, take me where it took me.
Interesting. Gosh. And I think sometimes there seems to be, especially with some of the classic artists, a romanticized image sometimes of the troubled artist.
Sure. So
I'm curious how you guys kind of stay leveled with talking about your experience in a very open and honest way without maybe, for lack of a better term, over glamorizing it or just kind of falling into I know it's kind of a lot like that with alcoholism, but if you ever felt a balance there.
It's, I think it's a lifetime. It's a lifetime balance. I feel like for me personally, and my fan base, I kind of relate it in a way. When I started to get popularity with my music, using again and stuff, it was really, the music was manufactured for people like me at the time, who were struggling with addiction. And now, down the pipeline, 7-8 years later, I feel like I make music for people. Oftentimes the music, the intention is people like me who are in recovery, who are trying to establish their life after the disaster of addiction. And that splits my own fan base heavily, because sometimes it's weird when people have a concept of who you are in reference to your music, and some people who are still attached to that using again thing, they see things that I say and that I do, and my behavior, and they're like, "You've changed." And I'm like, "No shit. Thank God I've changed.
For the better.
Thank God I've changed." So
that's kind of what you're supposed to do, and it's like by necessity. Otherwise, the other options are like, jails, institutions, and death. That's pretty much the path, Yeah.
But it's really hard finding that line between glorification of dark things, and glorification of the recovery, because it can, the line is very blurred. But I think I figured out a way to do that in today's day and age.
I think so.
I don't know.
Yeah. And that's interesting, the concept about like a polarizing fan base. Some people are really connected to you with the way that you used to write music versus how you do it now, because they're on totally different ends of the spectrum. I feel like the people who still resonate with like using again almost hear your new stuff and they're just like, gosh, well, that's not me. Like, I haven't gotten better. I haven't changed. So they kind of resent you for your evolution.
Well, it's like, I used to be a nihilist. I don't ideologically align with that any longer.
Right.
Words are hard.
Yes. English is tough.
But it's hard because from their perspective, I'm a traitor to the ideology they're still stuck in, and I'm like, I'm way past that, and I it's much more rewarding to speak on the beauty of life and gratitude and generosity and sacred duty and honor.
Yeah. And from my perspective too, it's like you don't have contempt for the people that are still in that, even though you've kind of like moved on from that in your life. If you were sitting around being like, those people are a bunch of lazy bums, they should have done it like I did, it's like, which you're not saying. You're really like delivering a message of hope, And I think that like for myself, like I remember being in addiction, and being so just beaten down and strung out on heroin and just so hopeless that anytime, somebody who had their life together was coming around, whether it was somebody in the 12-step programs that I knew or somebody who was really a positive influence, I would resent them a lot of the time because it was something that I wanted so desperately. Yeah. And so I think that's like at the core of those people, complaining basically about, oh, you've changed. I think that it's like a lot of those people just want you to reflect kind of where they're at, Wow. But I think you have a really good way of kind of bridging the gap between those two worlds and offering kind of a way out of that through like that catharsis of music, that's what you do, so.
Yeah.
Was there ever a time that you look back and you're just like, gosh, I'm just like surprised I made it here?
Oh yeah, definitely. There, I get those reminders a lot. When I go back out to the West Coast, when I go back out where I'm from to play shows, and see some of the old familiar haunts and the places I used to go and use, and I think about the times that I've overdosed and been close to death, or been in jail, or been out on the street, and been robbed, or been on the other end of that. And so many situations that, I've put myself in that I could have been, killed or killed somebody else, and so it is a constant reminder, that's why I have a lot of gratitude daily. Kind of like we were talking about, and it's just it's when you put it in perspective, it is, I think, a lot easier for somebody who's been there in that place to live in gratitude, because if you've seen how awful that life is, and the things that it can kind of make you do and bring you to, it's much easier to be in the present solution and be like, this, we're not fighting in a war, we're here, we're making music for a living. Like, this is a very good life, and it's a privilege, ultimately.
Amazing transformation. Gratitude's huge.
Without Ashley and Jody, that's another thing that really connects us, is that we both have incredible, beautiful, supportive partners. And we were just on the drive here, we were both reflecting on that, just like the difference in the trajectory of our lives. Me without Ashley or him without Jody is like, that's the angelic savior of my life.
Yeah, for both of you, they were very key in the decision to get clean. I'm assuming that was kind of like an ultimatum almost with them.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. It was a fork in the road, with Jody, and I'm glad that I chose the path of love, and of kind of devoting myself to that person, and she has, like you said, been like the most supportive partner I could have ever asked for. And also, it's something special that we have too with both Jody and Ashley, that like they're artists themselves, so we get to share that together. I write a lot of songs with Jody. Some of my favorite songs I've ever written have been co-writes with her.
That's great.
So yeah, it's like this, it's just another little puzzle piece in the puzzle of life, and recovery, that kind of keeps the wheels in motion.
There you go. You need that anchor. Well, I'm in love with both of them. They're amazing. I love them so much. How do you guys, and on that same topic, because you're, like you said, you're working with them too. They're on the road, they're playing in the band. How do you always continuously, personally show up to support each other, maybe through the stresses of like you were saying, road life, or the business aspect of things?
I have not done a very good job in my life. Of course, that's me also being very, very critical. And that's also emblematic of how we're imprinted by the darker side of things more than the lighter side of things.
Sure.
It's a lot of struggle. It's a lot of sacrifice. And I mean, for me personally, a part of things going forward, certainly after last year, was like, with Ashley, it was like, I think one of the best quotes was, I was like, I just don't know if this is working anymore. And she was like, I don't know if it's ever worked. And I was
like, not working is the beautiful part. That's what works.
We've had that, Jody and I've had that exact same conversation too. So it's good. It makes me feel better that that's universal,
Yeah, it's like, oh, did it ever actually work, or did we just force it to work?
Are we delusional?
Yeah.
We've asked ourselves that. We've been like, is this crazy? Are we just insane people, risking life and limb out here on the road, losing our ass every night, just trying to, make this thing work? And so it's definitely, we're not alone.
People, no, you're not.
But that's good.
That's great. And I know you're mentioning that you have a ton of dates, like you're on the road a lot and you're just getting off of the road a lot. Did you ever have to set aside some time during those years to just be like, hey, you and we need to go like have a dinner out. We need to have a night alone. We need to just like do something for us together.
We've just kind of started doing that really in this last like year and a half. But for so long, it's been this all hands on deck, just full speed ahead, eat, sleep, and breathe this music, and the lifestyle that goes with it, and, maintaining a band. And we've, for the longest time shipped our own merch, we've been our own label, in the past. And so now we've kind of made this transition. We're working with a great label, Lightning Rod Records, at 30 Tigers. I just, at kind of your advice, took my merch store and kind of switched it over to a fulfillment company so that, Jody isn't in there until midnight every night, packaging every order herself, which has been a game changer, for our relationship, because, it's easy to lose sight of the fact that this is your person that you love, you know, this is like your romantic partner as well as, you know, your business partner. And those lines get very blurred, you know, and it gets really hard to maintain that. So yeah, we went on our first vacation that we've ever taken together last year. We went to Mexico.
Oh, fun.
And, you know, we're trying to do things in life that are just a little bit more geared toward, you know, family, our nephews, going to weddings, not missing birthdays, you know, being a good member of our family, and, you know, good partners to each other, you know, as opposed to just having music be the music business, I should say, being, you know, priority number one, because it's really not. At the end of the day, if you get sick, if somebody dies, if anything happens like it does in life, music business goes away instantly, you know, and all you're left with is, you know, the close relationships and people. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's funny how everything in life comes full circle. Everything that everyone said to you between the age of like 4 and 10, if you had just done that, it's like family is most important, be honest, be trustworthy, be hardworking.
It's like the most basic advice that anybody would ever give if I would have just listened.
Live with honor, don't steal, don't do drugs.
Yeah.
You know, if we could have just like actually internalized that, you know, from
figure it out for ourselves, you know.
Ronald Reagan failed us. The DARE program did not fucking work.
Oh yeah,
did not fucking work on
They're all, here, kids. Here's what crack looks like. Don't do it now.
So last question on the whole addiction aspect before we move into something a little bit more lighthearted. What is one thing that you would maybe tell people, a piece of advice, anything that you've learned who could potentially still be on like their recovery journey?
In general, the key piece of advice I would give to someone considering recovery is like, a lot of people will tell you, you have to do it for yourself. You have to, you have to give up to a higher power, this, that, and the other. I kind of have a very, very different take in general. And my advice is anything that you can use as motivation to get you sober, use it. Do not sit there and worry about the weird theology of a lot of these programs. When I got sober, it was for Ashley. And so that was my sole focus. And that got me through that section of sobriety. And then something else got me through the next section. And then when I got enough strength, it finally was for myself.
My advice to somebody, you know, who's struggling or looking to get into recovery or is just even thinking about it is just don't pick up no matter what, you know.
Sure.
And it sounds very simple, but at the core of it, that's as simple as it is. It's like, don't pick up, and if you just keep compounding that time, like you said, you're going to start doing the right things. You're going to start becoming the man or woman that you want to be. There have been plenty of times, you know, where I have felt like I was failing in every other aspect of life, but I didn't drink or use drugs. I think back and I'm like, thank God I didn't, because I've been able to allow myself to grow up, you know, as a man and take responsibility and you know, develop a life beyond my wildest dreams, you know, truly.
Great words of wisdom. Well, on the flip side of things, what do you do these days to stay like mentally and physically healthy? I feel, is there a routine that we've kind of developed like day in and day out, some things that you're working on to like, what's that look like?
All right.
You take this one.
Doing my flexing here. I do. I've gotten really into, you know, I've always been kind of off and on into fitness, just, you know, that type of stuff. But I try it on the road and at home every day to, you know, I've got like a workout program I do. You know, I try to just do weight training and I try to do cardio as well. You know, I have a plan for that I do. When I'm in a hotel room, like today, I'll do, you know, 4 sets of 25 push-ups and 4 sets of 25 squats and like some sit-ups.
Nice.
I try to do that's like my bare minimum that I try to do. And it makes me feel good, you know, physically, but it also is like for my mind, it's just, if I've done that and I've exerted myself and kind of got my blood going, I feel like I perform better, you know, like on stage, I'm able to move around a little more freely, not be as rigid. I don't have as much anxiety about things. So that's kind of what I do. Another weird one that I do is, I got this from my brother Sage. He's a firefighter, and he's a badass, and he does this as well. We drink 4 raw eggs in a protein shake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's not just straight raw eggs, but I do,
in a protein
human eggs,
good.
or?
Yeah, human eggs. I get is good, good protein powder, 4 eggs. I get some greens in there and some creatine. And that's my daily serum. That if I have that in the morning, it's like it's kind of sounds gnarly, but it is. If I have that early in the day, I'm less hungry throughout the day. I'm able to have energy.
Yeah.
It sounds bizarre, but it's like these little hacks along the way on the road that you find out. And I just started doing it, and I was like, man, I feel better than I ever have. And I have energy, and the performance is better, all that stuff.
Sure. Doesn't sound that weird. I came from the world of like biohacking and stuff like that, and people do stuff like that all the time. Yeah. Oh yeah, raw eggs. We just got 14 chickens, so maybe I'll just have to crack one open every morning.
Yeah. You got 14 chickens?
We got 14.
You were in for it.
We are in for it. Yeah.
You're gonna have.
I miss having chickens. I had chickens growing up, and I miss having fresh eggs.
Yeah.
I have to buy my eggs now. One day that will change.
I'll
get some chickens.
We can ship them to you. We have way too many. This whole egg crisis is happening, and me and Ashley are like, just throwing eggs on the ground.
You guys are egging people's houses for fun?
Yes.
Yeah. That was $40 worth of eggs.
But for me, I actually started taking a collapsible bike on tour.
Okay.
So my routine on the road is the first thing that gets loaded out of the bus is the bike, and I typically do like 35 minutes on the bike with weight training while I ride the bike.
Okay, that's so awesome. It's like a recumbent. It's a stationary bike.
Yes, and 25, 30-pound weights while I'm doing that, just for efficiency sake. Like I changed just about everything. I used to fast 2 days a week. Monday and Tuesday, I used to not eat every single week. Now I'm trying to kind of build muscle more, so I've removed that. It's funny coming full circle and being at a point in recovery where you really start analyzing every critical part, and you also getting older and realizing that we have poisoned the entire planet, and we have to somehow autonomously, with our own choices day to day, choose how to mitigate that in our lives.
Yeah, it's like we're at war with everything constantly. We're at this like time where we have to fight, for our health, and the food we eat is toxic. We're constantly glued to social media. It's like we're kind of it's like an all-out assault on all aspects,
of the human spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. Health, on everything. And so when I think of it like that, I like a battle. Like I like a challenge type thing, So that's what gets me on the days where I'm like, I don't care. I don't want to exercise, or I don't want to do this. I don't want to eat healthy or whatever. It helps me to be like, no, I got to stick it to the man on this one, and take care of myself, because I want to be around for Jody, for my brother, my family, and all my nephews and stuff. And I want to be able to continue making music, and it's a big part of life.
It becomes a longevity game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do.
I know they always say, like, if you feel any sort of brain fog, mental, just like roadblock, just go for a walk. Just like fresh air, go for a walk, get your heart rate up a little bit, and you do feel better. I try to do that a lot of times, just even, running, walking. I'm not really a runner, but
just having a connection with your mind, your body, and your spirit now is so important. And every single power in the universe is trying to steal that away from you to some degree. They want to sell you poisonous food. They want to destroy your mind. And now basically real estate, the modern real estate is the real estate of human attention.
Attention, data and attention, yeah.
And it's like they're trying to rob you of your attention from your family. They're trying to rob you of your attention from your relationships, and yourself and your connection with your own spirit.
And your individual potential, I think. Like, if you're plugged into the machine all the time, you're not growing and learning.
You're not going to be a problem for the system.
Yeah, you're not learning how to be autonomous. You're not learning how to do stuff on your own. You become stuck and dependent. And That's how I feel anyway.
Sure.
You
I
just
agree.
feel plugged into what people are just like, they're just
You're
stealing
just
your
a
independence.
mindless consumer, you know,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what I feel like they're, whoever they is, the powers that be, are trying to
Elon.
to make a buck off of, trying to make $1, and that's has become the priority over the well-being of the people, which is unfortunate. But that's a huge part of my daily deal, is just to try to eat healthy, exercise, something that we've connected on, and it's so powerful. The cardio stuff you're saying, it's so powerful of a mental thing. Jody and I go for walks a lot too. Anytime we hit a roadblock where we're just stressed out, nothing's moving, or finances are tight or whatever, we go for a long walk, and that's just, it's always been a huge part of my life, growing up in the mountains and stuff. I love getting out and just walking, being in nature in general.
That's great. Yeah, just opens your mind. What about meditation? Is that is that something you tried?
Yes. I wake up, try to meditate, read my Bible, do a devotional. I think it all kind of eclipses just the concept of warriorship, in a way. That's kind of, I guess, spiritually what I try to focus on. It's like, you don't know the challenges ahead. You don't know the hardships of tomorrow. You have no idea what you're going to face, what demons you're going to face. So if you're in times, and this is other advice I give to people in recovery who are further down the path of recovery, it's like, you better prepare your mind and your body for what's going to happen. Because in our lifetime, you're going to lose 90% of the people that you love. You're going to watch them die, or you're not going to be around to see it. You may die, but then they're going to be on the other end of it. So you better prepare your soul and your body for hardship. And especially like in today's day and age, looking at our whole civilization, it's like, you better prepare for war. You better know how to use a rifle. You better be strong. You better have a good composition within your brain to be able to deal with stress.
Sure.
And I fall short on that all the time. I look at a little tiny minute situation that happened and how it affected me, and I'm like, the real war is coming. You better figure it out, Ben. Like,
Yeah, I think about that with, life things that come up when something that we were talking about earlier, if something doesn't go my way exactly, that is something good to remember, that the problems we have today, while it still gives you the same fight or flight, feeling when you hit that problem. It's like, we're not running from a bear today, we're not fighting we're not choking out a mountain lion to stay alive,
you have no need for survival.
Yeah, we're not building our own shelter. Everything is so convenient, and I think people are so detached from that, they don't realize that's one unique perspective that I think people, to just tie it back to the addiction, and anybody in one way or another who's had to fight for their life, and be in that realm, gives you this perspective on life that's like, it's not that bad, truly. We have things the best in history that they've ever been, as far as access to food, access to clean water, to clothing, to shelter. We're so bored every day that we complain about stuff, that people said, that politics, we disown our own families over politics, which is insane to me. That's just I've got family all over the political spectrum, and I love all of them. It's just insane. But yeah, there's just so much about life today. Like you said, it's like the real war's coming, and we have it pretty dang good, to where we can make art and be in this modern society. So throughout history, it has not always been that way. It goes up and down, and we're at this high point right now, and
what's next? History repeats
exactly.
itself.
So you never know. So I think that we ought to just enjoy this time and prepare, like you said. Not to sound too doomsday on
no doomsday at all. No doomsday at all. It could be coming. One more note on that, and then get to the last question. So I just had a conversation recently with somebody on that exact same principle. People, I feel like, are bored, purposeless, and almost depressed because we are so instinctually programmed to survive.
Mm-hmm.
We aren't running from the bears and the lions every day. We don't have anything else to take that place. Like, we have nothing that makes you feel alive unless you find it. And I think that's where, like, I don't know, adrenaline people come from. But yeah, they just, you know, people go searching for skydivers or balloon or cave dive just to feel alive because, you know, something's missing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
That sometimes. Anyway, okay, so last question back to the music, and then if there's anything else you guys want to cover, feel free, shoot it my way. You both seemingly are carving a path of your own in the music business, not trying to chase trends, not trying to be the next radio hit, but you still have massively loyal fan bases. What do you feel like is something that's missing in the current genre or industry today?
I would almost say,
Or what do you think people are hungry for or needing more of?
I think there's honestly too much.
Too much?
And I've watched this, you know, pendulum swing from powers of, you know, the elite execs and the individuals with their cameras. People being able to directly reach their audience without interference from corporations and the money of PR campaigns and publishers to be able to advance a fan base. And then it felt like that medium, you know, for a short time shifted into sort of the TikTok generation.
Yeah.
And the ability to, again, reach viewers directly without a middleman, to be able to build a grassroots fan base. And now it feels like, it's weird, it feels like the powers that be have kind of figured out the trick to it. They get to people really early, and I'm sure you see this on your side of the industry, where you'll hear about, you know, this 15-year-old, 16-year-old who got this hot lick song, and all of a sudden Columbia and RCA and Atlantic are whoosh, they're right there, because now they've realized the game. It took them, it seemed like it took them about 3 years to get there quick enough to make an impact, but it's also harmful to the development of these younger artists. It's like, just because you can hit a lick on TikTok, and I think we touched some on this last interview, so I don't want to repeat myself, but like, you know, just because you can run a hot lick on TikTok does not mean that you can command a stage.
Right.
Does not mean that you have the ability to, like, oh, you have an equipment malfunction in the middle of a show in front of 1,000 people. All right, you know how to pick it up and be like, you get that, I'll get this, and keep it burning. Like, all right, folks, everything's cool. We're gonna run this next song. You know, you don't know the tangibles. But now there is so much music coming from influence of every single era and interpreted slightly differently. It almost feels choking to even be a part of the scene. Like, I don't like people all the time, like, that are on sort of lower social hierarchical tier than me, and they're still building, will be like, well, how do I get attention? I'm like, I don't fucking know. I don't even know how to get attention.
Have a good product, have good music.
Yes, I mean, that's obviously like the songwriting.
It's the biggest part, for sure.
So what do you think? I don't even...
I'm sorry. I'm trying to remember the exact question. I'm trying to remember exactly how you worded it.
What do you think is missing?
Yeah, what do you think is missing in the genre or the industry, or what do you think people are wanting more of these days?
These days.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all great points. You know, with that, I really don't know. I think, you know, what I do is try to just write the best songs that I can, and you know, I try to, like you said earlier, I really try to stay true to myself and like my influences and what I like. You know, for instance, this new record that I am about to release in June is very like California country rock, going back to like the Eagles and the Burrito Brothers. And
that's one that's missing right there.
Yeah, you know, there's not a lot of people doing that in it. And I didn't look at it like, oh, there's nobody doing this, so I'm going to go do that. You know, it was like, that's what was in my soul. You know, like that music that I grew up on. and as well as like the Southern rock stuff like Allman Brothers and I love that type of music. So it was kind of just in my heart to make that record and to do that. And I think that could be one thing that is missing is, now there's so much focus on chasing the trends.
Yeah.
And, we have these major labels who are really encouraging kids who already have their brains all screwed up because they grew up on TikTok, glued to their phones. And now they're like, hey, this is how you get attention, is like basically by like striving for something. It's contrived,
Yeah. A good
and
hook, lots of attention grabbers,
or like, cover this era of songs,
Mm-hmm.
the 90s are in, so do this. Like for me, I'm almost like, oh, okay, the 90s are in. I love 90s country. I absolutely love it. But I'm like, that's popular. I'm going to go the absolute opposite way and go, do something else that I love, because I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else for doing it, but that's just like the only way that I can personally as an artist, So I don't know. I think there's a little bit too much sameness, with everything. There's like a formula, like you were saying, and I think people have figured that out, the powers that be, and it's kind of like homogenizing everything, And so I think one thing that would benefit it is just, follow your own path, to any artist out there trying to do it. If you're getting into music for riches and fame, you're in it for the wrong reasons, in my opinion, But if you want to make good art, you want to make good music, connect with fans, help people, change people's lives, do what's in your heart, and exactly.
Yeah.
That's it.
I love all the different flavors that's offered within this scene within geographical context.
Mm-hmm.
Mirage's down in Alabama, Taylor Honeycutt and Drayton Farley, and obviously Red Clay Strays.
Yeah.
And it's really awesome, the resurgence of like the state and regional pride within like music coming
Alabama
up.
and Oklahoma and
Yeah, and then you have the Kentucky scene, which and the Tennessee localized scene and the Arkansas localized scene and the people heading the sound and the flavor and sort of the feel of all that, and you can kind of feel and taste within every one. You could almost guess if you were like a blind alien, researching the plan. You're like, well, this is similar. I don't know why.
This has hints of Kentucky with a little bit of a Alabama finish to it.
Yeah, but I love the art mixed in with the pride of the region, and maybe that's a part of your next step, is bring California back.
California country.
Yeah, that's a
huge... people do not respect it.
I think that's again like a big political thing, which I understand. People have their own allegiances and stuff, but I think it's important to look at it like
the history of
to look at, for one, all of Merle Haggard's music was recorded, in the 60s in Los Angeles. He was born and raised Bakersfield, California, Oildale specifically. Buck Owens' career was in California. There's just this huge history of California country music, and then in the 70s, with all the guys who were influenced by Bakersfield, that were these kind of like hippie rocker dudes who wanted to go make this kind of hybrid of rock and roll and country, and that influenced rock and roll in general of the 70s, 80s into the 90s. So it's got a huge significant role, my home state, and so that's kind of like this cross to bear, that I feel like I have. And people like to give California a hard time. Like I said, I totally understand, but it's important, I think, to separate like politics and music have no correlation. Like to me, like I think if you're not able to separate somebody's like, personal ideologies from the music they make. Yeah. Especially if it's not like political music, which I'm not a fan of. I like just music that is from the heart, and from the soul. Politics are not like of the natural world, And so, it's sorry to go off on a rant there, but I want to bring some pride back to my home state, you know, within the realm of country music. And to not like shove it in anybody's face and say that, you know, I'm from California and I'm better than you or anything. It's like, I'm just proud to be a part of the greater picture, you know, like everybody representing the South, you know, and representing Oklahoma and Texas, you know. I want California to be kind of right back up there.
Absolutely.
You want,
where
you
it
want some
once
respect
was.
Put on that name.
Yeah, some spec on the name. Exactly, that's it.
I get a ton of that. People see new artists and they're like, "Ooh, I love them." Ooh, just kidding. They support so and so, so I don't love them anymore. I'm like,
yeah, sure.
What?
And I get it. It's like,
you like that music.
We're all kind of trained to like feel to think that way and feel that way these days, but yeah, to anybody who has a prejudice against California, I beg you to go check out the Bakersfield country of back in the day. Check out, you know, the 70s stuff from the Byrds, the Flying Burrito Brothers, the Eagles, and, you know, listen to that music and then listen to my music, and you'll hear this huge connection, you know, between all those sounds and, you know, my own sound. I'm hugely influenced by that, and I think independently, you know, it's just... It's from my heart, you know, that music, and that's, I think, where you're from is a huge part of like the imprint on your soul, you know. That's how the music comes through you, and that's your filter on life, you know.
100%. Any funny stories about each other? Any funny road stories, or?
We're not wild anymore.
We're not wild anymore.
We had, last night we had some venison. That was a crazy time.
Oh, wow, jeez, calm down.
Yeah,
last night we cooked out over at Sierra Farrell's house.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Very, very adult. Very. I think we left at 9:30, and we were all like, "Yeah, it's bedtime.
We're tired.
We can't. I've got to get to bed."
We ate venison steaks and played some old time tunes on the fiddle and guitar.
So
yeah, I'm trying to think of other stories, like, you know, crazy stuff, but we really don't have any crazy stuff. Like we're both at these. Hey, settle down there. Sorry.
You're smoking all stuff.
Well, no, we're just at this point in our life where we're, you know, we're productive, you know, we're healthy, we're sober, we have good, you know, good stability in life, and that's kind of when our friendship began. Like, and I think about that. I'm like, I don't know that you would have wanted to be friends with, and vice versa. Like if we had met each other, we might have hated each other 10 years ago.
That's what I said. I think last night when I saw him, like, man, we're so lucky we didn't meet each other when we were both bad people. Or worse people.
Wouldn't have liked each other then.
But yeah, it was such a, you know, privilege to be able to kind of tying it back to what you were saying about like the scene and what it needs, you know, as far as like the realm of music and country music. You know, it's just cool to be able to sit in a room and pick guitars, you know, with Benjamin Tod, Sierra Farrell, and to be there to just for fun. No cameras rolling, no agenda. You know, it's just like we're just doing this purely for fun. That's something that I feel like is missing, you know, now that music is so like commodified. Just picking for fun, jamming with your friends, you know, writing songs for the hell of it. And so that's why I'm glad to be friends with Ben, because I feel like you know, that comes naturally to you, you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Huh. Well, both incredible artists, amazing, inspirational people, and thank you all very much for sharing your story.
Thank you, Nikki. Truly appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.